Hey, it's Doug. This is Backcountry Pilgrim. I am out here at White Pines Lake about to start the Arnold Rim Trail. But the trailhead here is at a logging museum next to the beautiful parks and picnic areas of White Pines Lake. So I'm going to be poking around here a little bit because I think this might be a great place for my kids to come with me sometime. And then I'm going to hop on the Arnold Rim Trail and take you with me while I talk about why I like to solo hike. Alright, so before I get into why I like to solo hike, let's talk about other options. Basically, you've got three. You can hike by yourself solo, you can hike with a partner, or you can hike with a group. Hiking with a group is comparatively safe to going solo, where if something happens, there's not necessarily a whole lot you can do about it. And also, if something happens, there are more people that can help out. It's going to be a bit more dangerous or adventurous, depending on your point of view. Hiking with a partner, it's a bit more safe, but less so than with a big group. When hiking solo, you're going to miss out on the social aspect, and all of these things can be pluses or minuses to different personalities in different situations. Personally, I almost never like hiking in a group because the social dynamic is almost always going to be awkward at some point. Hiking with a group that has a wide range of skills is necessarily going to limit you to the lowest common denominator, or the group's going to end up breaking up anyway, in which case, why did you go with a group? And again, to a lesser degree, hiking with a partner can be the same way. If you are not very evenly matched in your hiking skills or even your goals for the day, it can make things a little tense as you try to figure out what the other person wants to do and whether or not you're holding them back or whether or not they are holding you back. As far as the safety dimension, I typically am fairly confident out on the trail, and unless I'm going somewhere very far or very inherently dangerous, I typically don't take that into a major consideration. Maybe I should, but in 50 years, it's never been an issue, and perhaps I'm overconfident now. But I do hike with an emergency locator. I check in regularly with my wife. I'm going to do it right now. This can also signal emergency services should I need them. So in case of an extreme problem, I do have some safety measures in place. And I have to admit that going solo into the outdoors, into the backcountry, is a bit more exciting when you're by yourself. But really, my number one reason for hiking solo is the social aspect, or in this case, the lack of a social aspect. Alright, the bugs are getting a little annoying out here, so I'm going to head down the trail and take up this aspect of solo hiking at my next stop. I don't know if you can hear that, but I literally sat down to talk about the benefit of silence on the trail, and I can hear a siren somewhere. Alright, so getting back to it. One of the reasons that I really like solo backpacking is silence. And now there's a chainsaw. A big part of the reason that I like to hike is because I am trying to get away from all the stimuli of the city, of the home, of the office, and in between my home and work, I live in a fairly loud city where even if I've got my music off in the car, I'm probably listening to somebody else's or some crazy person walking down the street screaming at people. Sometimes I feel like I just need to go someplace where I can remember that there are still quiet places in the world, or at least even if they're a bit loud like they are right now, that this is the sound of life, this is the sound of nature, this is the sound of the world the way God made it, and not a bunch of artificial sound, unnaturally loud sounds that just assault us all day long in modern life. I believe that we are just so overstimulated as a society that it's really caused a shift even in the way people think or their ability to think. So when I go hiking, I don't necessarily want somebody to talk to. I don't necessarily want to be in a conversation where I'm having to follow it and listen and pay attention and think through things and respond. I just want to kind of walk around and let my mind relax, let it process things from the week or however long it's been since the last time I hiked. And it's just difficult to do that when there's somebody else there, because I don't want to ignore the other people that I'm hiking with. But at the same time, if I'm wanting to get away from it all, it's very difficult if I'm not by myself. So the ability to reflect, the ability to appreciate and expand my interior life, my thought life, is important to me. And I find that I do it a lot better when I can just kind of zone into nature, hike down the trail, let kind of the more instinctive part of my brain take over, getting me from point A to point B, while the other part of my mind can sift through thoughts, reflect on experiences. That's why you will almost never see me with earbuds walking down the trail. I don't listen to books on tape. I don't listen to music when I'm hiking. And you will never catch me with one of those Bluetooth speakers when I am out on the trail. So when I want to get outside, very often it's for the beauty, it's for the exercise, which I love, but there's also a very strong component of I just want to give my mind and body a break. And the easiest way to do that is to go on a solo hike where the only things I am usually hearing are the sounds of nature and my own footsteps. All right, place to stop. Just ran into a fellow hiker. She was heading off to another destination, which is cool because that means I can sit here and not be too awkward and weird, other than my super dead sexy bug net, which is required right now. There are quite a bit of bugs out here. So that brings up my next reason that I like solo hiking, and that is solitude. Now, solitude and silence often go together, but they are distinct, and sometimes they're really not even necessary for each other. Solitude is really just the state of being solitary, being by yourself, and that doesn't always mean that you are alone. You can be by yourself in a crowd as far as the important aspects of solitude go, although obviously it's a lot easier to be in solitude when you are alone. It's not absolutely required. Solitude for me really has more to do with the level of interaction that I'm expected to have with those around me, if there are people around me. So if I'm not alone, I can still have solitude. I can still be by myself if I'm not expected to interact very much with those around me. If you think about monks or nuns who are in a contemplative order, I tend to think of them as being in a monastery, kind of far away from civilization, living alone in their own rooms, working by themselves, even if they're in a room full of other people working by themselves. And I think there's a reason that we picture that. Solitude is important for the interior life. It is important for contemplating truth and this sort of thing. In a solo hike, I am experiencing solitude. Even if I walk by other hikers and spend a couple of minutes chatting them up, I am basically on my own. I can walk away from that conversation whenever I want to. You know, it's kind of trail etiquette that you don't attach yourself to somebody else just because you happen to be hiking the same trail together. In fact, most hikers are going to take actions to make sure that there's a bit of distance so that people can have the amount of solitude that they entered the trail with. Pro tip on trail etiquette, if you ever get passed by some hikers, don't fall in right behind them. Give them a couple minutes to get ahead and then start hiking again. They didn't come out to hike with you. To get solitude is a big part of the reason that I like to hike, and therefore hiking solo is more conducive to that. Yeah, not the most intriguing trail in the world, but pretty good payoff at the end. All right, I just had my trail snack and I'm feeling pretty good, taking a little break here. What a great way to de-stress, right? To be outside in nature. Even though I'm working harder than I would normally work physically in a normal day, it's a cathartic kind of work. And a payoff like this beautiful view right here, it just really serves to just kind of detox the mind, calm the spirit, and just cleanse the soul. Which brings me to my next point about solo hiking, and that is stress. On a solo hike, there isn't usually very much to stress about because pretty much whatever you do, it's only happening to you. You don't have other people to worry about, and I tend to get somewhat anxious when I'm with other people because I worry about how my actions influence them, how what I do affects them. Everybody's different. We all have different paces that we hike at. We have different things we like to do on trail. We have different biological functions. And all of these are going to serve in one way or another to kind of break the natural rhythm that somebody has when they're hiking. And this starts even before the hike. Or if I had been meeting somebody at the trailhead, say at 7:30, or if they were picking me up at 6, I would have had to set an alarm. I would have had to make sure I didn't forget anything because there was no way that I could really take extra time to get it if I did. I would have to be fairly confident that my biological functions were going to work that early in the morning. And then once you're on the trail, you're affected by the other person's pace. Either you're speeding up or slowing down, or they're speeding up or slowing down, or both. So there's a good chance that neither one of you are really hitting your preferred rhythm. The number of breaks you take, the number of pee stops you have to make, how many snack times you need, how long you want to spend at a pretty place like this. All of these things are factors that affect the other person, and I just always have kind of a low-grade anxiety that, the way I want to hike isn't going to be the way my partner wants to hike, and so I may be affecting them negatively. Now, I also know that sometimes hiking with a partner can be very positive. Sometimes a little bit faster pace will motivate you to work a little harder and get you in better shape. So again, there are times where I hike with different people depending on what my goal is for the hike. For today, I wanted a very chill hike. And I'm really just kind of looking to be outside and wander around aimlessly, see some pretty things. I don't really want to be motivated. I don't want to have to quicken my pace. I don't want to have to stay somewhere longer or shorter than I want to. So this hike is very much about me, for me, and having a partner at this time would not be very conducive to that. I would be stressed to some extent because I'd be worried about how I'm affecting the other person, and when I am doing a hike, stress is usually what I'm trying to avoid. So although the stress of hiking with another partner or a group is nothing like the stress of taking care of a family or doing a good job at your place of employment. It is still stress. It is still there. And in those cases, I find that solo hiking is usually exactly what I need. So, for example, although I've reached the end of this trail and I've come to this very beautiful place, I need to do some exploring. And because I am the only one I have to worry about, I'm going to. So let's see what we see up here. This is some seriously cool rock. It's interesting, nothing on the hike indicated that this is going to be the kind of thing that would be waiting for you at the end. Look at that. It's beautiful. The trail up here is basically almost like a miniature logging road. I would not have expected this at the end of it. Oh. See, California is just awesome. Oh, cool, look at that rock right there. Kind of sandwiched in between those two. All right, pretty. Oh, there's the falls. There they are. Gosh, it's so tiny, I don't even know if you can see it on here. I definitely did not think I would be seeing a place like this today. Wow, this is very unexpected considering the trail came in on. But what a payoff. Good payoff trail. Not a whole heck of a lot of work, but big, rocky, cool cliff here at the end. just doing a quick check-in. It is about 12:40. I am leaving the Overlook. So with multiple breaks, YouTubing, recording, lunch, snacks, snapping a bunch of selfies back there, I have been on trail 3 hours. So I'm assuming that I will make it back in about 2. Speaking of YouTubing, that is another reason that I often prefer a solo hike. Doing a good YouTube trip video is a lot more than just snapping some pictures or video with your iPhone. It often involves setting up, getting some shots, breaking down, and continuing the hike. Many times it means hiking the same portion of the trail 3 times because you're setting up, doing a walk by, turning around, coming back, getting your camera, turning around, and hiking the trail again. Now, a simple walk-by video might only kill an extra minute of your time, but if you're doing a long shot, you could be looking at 5 or 10 minutes of extra time on your hike, which is no big deal if you're going solo, but can be very aggravating to other people. I actually enjoy the process of filming. I find it actually helps me to look around more and not miss things because I'm looking for cool stuff to shoot. However, somebody that is more interested in just knocking out the miles can be very frustrating if somebody's stopping every time there's something cool to look at and either snapping a picture or doing a long pan video or setting up the tripod and the camera and doing some action shots. And again, I totally get it. If I was not filming, I wouldn't want to wait for someone, even though I'm a YouTuber. That's why hiking with other YouTubers can be fun. And it can also be an exercise in patience. Keying in with the stress factor that I said before, if I'm on a trip that I feel like filming, I don't want to stress on how that is affecting other people that I'm with. And so I find it's just easier to go solo. All right, before I let you go, I'd like to go briefly back over these considerations and talk about dealing with the pitfalls of each one. I noted that one of the pitfalls safety-wise is that it is more dangerous to hike solo than with a partner, and in many cases that is the way it's going to be. I know me personally, if I'm going on a hike with a big group of people or even just another experienced hiker, I'm going to feel a lot safer, and that is probably going to lead me to not take some of the hiking precautions I might have or would have or should have as a solo hiker. Of course, you should always be carrying the 10 essentials with you when you are out in the backcountry, and having somebody with you might give you a false sense of security that causes you to doubt whether or not you need them. He's not taking his jacket, so I won't take my jacket. That sort of thing. So for example, good safety procedures when you're solo hiking is to make sure that at least one other person knows where you're going, knows your expected times of departure and arrival, can tell people where you are and where you expect to be at certain times. You might even take a picture of yourself before you go and send it to them so that they know what kind of clothing and gear you have. That makes it easier to identify you or talk to other people about if they've seen you on the trail. You can even take a picture of your footprint or the bottom of your shoe in case they are literally trying to track you. When you're at the trailhead, you might leave a little note on the dash of your car saying your first name, where you plan to be, and maybe an emergency number. That way, if somebody finds your car in the middle of the night, they at least know who you are. I also carry the Zoleo emergency satellite locator. This allows me to send texts via satellite to people to let them know where I am. So I would take the opportunity that a little more fear causes in you to be a little more safe. When it comes to silence, if you are not used to just experiencing the sounds of nature and not having some kind of noise being piped into your ears, try it out. It's actually kind of amazing how many sounds are actually occurring in the forest if you can just quiet your surroundings and your soul to listen. Listen to what the world sounds like without artificial stimuli. Leave the earbuds at home. And for heaven's sake, leave your Bluetooth speaker at home. As far as solitude goes, maybe you're doing a solo hike for the purpose of solitude, or maybe you're not. But in either case, try to embrace it. There's probably going to come a time in the hike when the excitement has sort of worn off and the silence has maybe become rather boring. And at that time, instead of distracting yourself with music or books or something like that, go deeper into that boredom. Allow that boredom to bother you, because your mind is not going to stay passive and bored for very long. In fact, it is boredom that is often the trigger for intellectual and creative activity. I know for me, when I am hiking and I start to get a little bored, my mind just automatically starts becoming creative and thinking of things that I want to do after the hike. If you're more of a crafts person or a creator, this might be the time for the creativity to come out. Boredom is a gift to the intellectual or creative mind. Don't waste it. Now, if you're an introverted person, you're probably not going to have much of the stress issue to deal with. And ironically, if you're an extroverted person, you may not stress either. You may not really care what other people are thinking about what you're doing. But if you're somewhere in the middle, like a lot of people, take the advantage that the solo hike gives you of not having to worry about what other people think about what you're doing. It's a great way to get started hiking, because you can kind of find out what your style is, how fast you like to go, how often you like to stop, what you like to do on a hike. You can discover all of those things on a solo hike without having to be worried about ruining someone's hike for them. And then, if you decide that solo hiking is not really your thing, you'd rather go with a group of people or a partner, you're going to be able to give them a good idea of what you are like on a hike and see if you'll be compatible. Even if you're not a YouTuber, taking a bunch of different shots of your hike and then maybe putting them together in a nice edit with music or something like that when you get home will make your trip videos and pictures a lot more interesting to those you show them to, for the same reasons. And finally, a word of caution. If you are new to hiking, I would suggest that you be very conservative with your solo hikes before you start taking on longer trails. There is a learning curve when it comes to hiking, and as they say, you avoid mistakes through wisdom and you gain wisdom by making mistakes. So the basic idea is you want to be fairly conservative with your early solo hikes, not going too far, not doing things too challenging, because you want to make those mistakes when they're not going to be very costly. So I would say that if you are not really used to hiking yet, or you're only used to hiking with a partner or in groups, make your solo hikes somewhere familiar, make them places where there's going to be a decent population of hikers, and practice all of your skills until you feel good about being alone, and then take yourself out on some more challenging hikes. All right, that is it for me. Thank you for coming along on this hike. I hope that you have found these tips valuable. If you have, would you mind giving the video a like? And if you're new to the channel, maybe think about subscribing and clicking that bell so that you will be alerted when new videos drop. Until next time, I'm Doug. This is Backcountry Pilgrim. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.